Thomas Wagner. Thomas Wagner died during the Battle of Trost. A jumping titan snatched him midair while he was using his ODM gear. This death is one of the most brutal because of the environment inside a titan's body. Titans do not have digestive systems, but their internal body temperature is extreme. It stays at over 100 degrees Celsius. When the titan swallowed Thomas, he did not die instantly. He fell into a pool of boiling stomach acid. This acid is not meant to digest food. It is a graveyard of previous victims. Thomas spent his final moments submerged in a soup of half-dissolved corpses. He was likely conscious for several minutes. The heat would have blistered his skin and scorched his lungs with every breath. He eventually suffocated in the dark, surrounded by the rotting remains of his comrades. It was a slow, claustrophobic, and agonizing end for a trainee who never saw it coming. Marco Bot. Marco Bot was not killed by an enemy. He was served to a titan by his own comrades. Reiner, Berthold, and Annie pinned him down and stripped him of his ODM gear. They left him helpless on a roof in Trost. Marco had to watch his friends fly away while a 10-meter titan approached. He died begging for a chance to talk. The titan grabbed him and bit through his right side. It didn't swallow him whole. It tore away exactly half of his torso and head. This means Marco didn't die instantly. His brain and heart remained partially intact for several seconds. He bled out on that roof, staring at the sky with his one remaining eye. Jean later found his scorched, half-eaten corpse crawling with flies. Petra Rao. During the forest pursuit, the female titan didn't bother eating her. She treated Petra like a bothersome insect. Annie swung her leg with enough force to shatter wood. The impact happened in midair. The kick slammed Petra's spine directly against a giant tree. The physics here are horrifying. Her body had to absorb the momentum of a 14-meter titan's full-force kick. Her spine snapped instantly. Her ribcage collapsed into her lungs. She didn't fall to the ground normally. Her body was folded backward into a U shape against the trunk. She died with her eyes wide open, staring at her own heels. Hannes. Hannes died fighting this smiling titan, the same monster that ate Carly Jaeger 5 years prior. This wasn't a quick kill. The titan caught Hannes mid-swing, trapping his lower body in its massive grip. The titan did not swallow him whole. It bit him directly across the torso. The force of a titan's jaw is enough to crush solid bone and steel. Hannes's spine snapped, and his internal organs were pulverized instantly. He was literally bitten in half. For a few horrifying seconds, Hannes remained conscious. He had to look into the same vacant, smiling face that had haunted his nightmares. He died watching his legs fall to the ground while his upper half was shoved into the titan's mouth. It was a brutal end for the man who just wanted to redeem his past cowardice. Nanaba and Jelgar. Nanaba and Jelgar died during the siege of Utgard Castle. Their deaths are some of the most visceral in the series because they were completely helpless. They ran out of blades and gas, leaving them stranded on the ground. Nanaba's death is especially haunting. Multiple small titans grabbed her at once. They didn't aim for a quick kill. They pulled her limbs in different directions like a human tug-of-war. The physical pain was so intense that her mind broke. She regressed to a childhood trauma, screaming for her father to stop as the titans began to eat her alive. Jelgar suffered just as much. He was tossed into a titan's mouth while reaching for an empty bottle of alcohol. He died with his skull being crushed by blunt teeth. Both soldiers were veterans who had survived hundreds of missions, only to be torn apart like paper by mindless monsters. Zofia and Udo. Zofia and Udo died during Eren Yeager's surprise attack on Liberio. Their deaths represent the chaotic, unceremonious brutality of war. Zofia died first. When Eren transformed under the stage, a massive chunk of flying debris flattened her instantly. Udo's death was much slower and more painful. In a state of shock, he tried to pull Zofia's crushed body from under the rock. He didn't see the panicked crowd behind him. Hundreds of terrified citizens began to flee the plaza. Udo was knocked down and trapped under a wall of human bodies. He was trampled to death. This wasn't a quick titan bite. It was the weight of hundreds of boots crushing his ribs, snapping his neck, and smashing his skull into the pavement. By the time his friends found him, his face was unrecognizable. He died in a pile of mud and blood, killed by the very people he lived to protect. Faye Yeager. She didn't die in a grand battle or by a titan's hand. She was an 8-year-old girl caught outside the Eldian internment zone. A Marleyan officer decided to teach her a lesson by feeding her to his dogs. The brutality here is the lack of a quick end. The dogs were trained to hunt and tear. They didn't aim for the neck to kill her instantly. They ripped at her limbs and stomach while she was fully conscious. Faye spent her final minutes screaming in a wasteland, being eaten alive by animals. When her body was found, it was a mangled mess of bite marks and missing flesh. This death stripped away the fantasy of monsters and showed the true, human evil in the world. It was a cold, lonely, and agonizing death that fueled an entire century of hatred. Berthold Hoover. Berthold's death is a masterpiece of poetic and physical horror. After being defeated by Armin and Aaron, the god of destruction was reduced to a limbless torso. He was left on a rooftop, helpless, as a mindless Armin Titan approached him. The brutality here is the role reversal. The man who kicked down the wall and started the apocalypse died, crying for the very people he betrayed. As Armin picked him up, Berthold screamed for Reiner and Annie to save him. He realized in his final seconds that no one was coming. The physical pain was slow. Armin didn't swallow him whole. He crushed Berthold's skull and upper body between his teeth first. You can hear the sickening crunch of his bones breaking before the screen goes dark. He died in absolute terror, being eaten by one of his former victims. Mishi Zacharias. Mishi Zacharias was humanity's second strongest soldier, but his death was the most pathetic and agonizing. It began when the Beast Titan crushed his horse and stripped him of his equipment. Mishi was left stranded on a roof, paralyzed by the sight of a talking Titan. The brutality here is the calculated cruelty. The Beast Titan didn't kill Mishi himself. He calmly ordered several 4-meter Titans to start eating. This was a slow, systematic dismantling of a human being. They didn't go for the head or the heart first. The Titans grabbed Mishi's legs and arms, pulling him in opposite directions. He felt his joints pop and his flesh tear as they bit into his lower body. Mishi, a veteran who had faced death 100 times, died screaming in absolute, primal terror. He felt every single bite until his torso was finally ripped open. It was a humiliating and excruciating end for a legendary hero. Sergeant Major Gross. The death of Sergeant Major Gross is the most brutal because it is pure, agonizing karma. Gross was the Marleyan officer who fed Faye Yeager to his dogs. He believed Eldians were subhuman and enjoyed watching them die. His own end was a mirror of his cruelty. Aaron Kruger pushed Gross off the wall, landing him directly in front of a Titan he had just created. The brutality was calculated. The Titan didn't kill him instantly with a stomp or a quick bite to the torso. It grabbed him by the head. The Titan began eating Gross from the face down. It chewed slowly, crushing his jaw and skull while Gross was still conscious and screaming. The sound of his muffled cries as his head was slowly pulverized is one of the most disturbing audios in the series. He died feeling his own brains and bone being gnawed on by the very monster he had laughed at moments before. It was a long, vocal, and gruesome execution.